You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Welcome to the Dressage Today podcast's Training Buzz. These short podcasts bring you the best tips straight from our subscription video site, Equestrian Plus. To get full access to over 5,000 videos, go to equestrianplus.com and enter DT Podcast to get 15% off your first month's subscription. Now listen in on this week's Buzz and enjoy the ride. Today, Grand Prix trainers and competitors Todd Flettrich and Ruth Hogan-Poulsen discuss riding Haunches-in. It is ridden on 4 tracks, and the bend comes primarily from behind the saddle, and the neck and shoulders stay straight on the direction of travel. They cover the proper aids for riding Haunches-in, as well as common mistakes and how to address them.
Ruth and I are going to take this time to discuss the Haunches-in. Ruth, what is the Haunches-in?
Haunches-in is another piece of lateral work. We show this one on 4 tracks as opposed to shoulder-in, which is on 3 tracks. You are traveling and bent in the same direction. So for example, if I'm doing a Haunches-in to the left, tracking left, the horse is also bent left and flexed left. The bend is coming primarily behind the saddle, which is creating the wrap around your inside leg, which is creating your 4 tracks. So the head and the neck and the shoulders should be traveling straight along the path that you've chosen. Now that path could be the long side, the quarter line, the center line, the circle, the diagonal line, many places. But you just have to always identify the path, the line that you're going on, and you bring the haunches to the inside of that line. You don't let the shoulders go to the outside of that line, otherwise it would be called something else. It's Haunches-in, so we keep the neck and the shoulders straight with flexion in the direction of travel, and we bring the haunches to the inside of that inside shoulder.
And both of us pretty much like to teach it through a circle or coming out of the corner, 10-meter circle or coming out of the corner, and using the last stride of the circle to not allow the horse's haunches to actually reach the track. Some common flaws, common issues?
So again, all of us are predisposed to using too much inside rein. And so when we overbend with the inside rein and the head and the neck overbends, the shoulders pop out. And so then the shoulders are not staying parallel to the line that you've chosen. So that's one. Another would be not enough bend behind the saddle. And then when that happens, you also don't have enough angle behind the saddle, so therefore you don't demonstrate 4 tracks.
We did say it's on 4 tracks, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, your horse is a certain length, 10 feet maybe or so, and if you are doing a 10-meter circle and you come back to the track and the horse's head and neck starts to look straight down that path, but the hindquarters are still on the circle, that is the first moment of Haunches-in. So I like to think of, I'm just continuing the last stride of my 10-meter circle down the long side, or coming out of a corner. But again, I think of my corner as a quarter circle. So depending on the level horse I'm riding, it depends on how deep in the circle I go into the depth of my corner.
Right.
So I see that. I see loss of rhythm. I see loss of impulsion. I see head tilting. And some of it can be because of a rider's incorrect aids, but some of it is also sometimes from a horse learning or stiffer to one side. So these lateral pieces, these lateral movements that we're learning how to do are really trying to isolate suppleness both in front of the saddle and behind the saddle to then create more straightness, so that then the impulsion can come more straight through the channel that you're creating.
Yes. And one of the common flaws I see is, again, the rider's positioned quite often, sometimes falling to the outside. They're working so hard with their outside leg, pulling on the inside rein, and they think they're getting the bend through behind the saddle, but they're actually they're falling off to the outside. So therefore, the horse is actually, visualize yourself on a skateboard, and you sit too far back on the skateboard, and the skateboard goes from under your seat. So when they're leaning to the outside, and so the horse then cannot properly bend.
Correct.
Because the horse stops, the horse is falling into the direction of the bend, not bending and going to the direction of the bend.
Yeah, I like that skateboard analogy.
Yeah.
I think of my students, and we said it for the shoulder in, but now they'd be ice skating towards their inside stirrup. Their outside hip and seat bone and also shoulder comes back and pushes the horse around the inside leg. I think sometimes my students think that the inside leg is to push them like sideways like this, but it isn't really. It's to wrap around the inside leg, like if you have a C, so that the hind leg comes around, but you're not pushing them sideways off your inside leg.
It's kind of as if they had a pole in the ground and you're wrapping the horse around that hole.
Yeah, I like to think about that when I'm doing my shoulder in.
Yeah.
I pretend I'm on a merry-go-round horse, and I have the pole from the merry-go-round horse goes through my ear, shoulder, hip.
The county fair?
Yeah, the county fair. And then I just think I'm spiraling around that pole as I go down to do a shoulder in. I just don't finish the circle.
Yeah. Super. That's great.
We hope you enjoyed this bonus podcast. Remember, go to equestrianplus.com to subscribe to our online catalog and enter DT Podcast to get 15% off your first month. Thanks for listening.